focus on the opposite of what he was predicting, we can keep these things from happening, and we can perform a miracle. And that's what he told me to do. And I was doing that for many years, all through the 90s, really. I think I stopped lecturing on it toward the end of the 90s. But during that time, a lot of these things did come true. And then now, the worst isn't. So I'm going to be playing a video, and I want you to show you what's going on here with that, because I'm coming up to all kinds of conclusions. But first, I do want to tell about some of the ones that have come true. People for years have been saying, I'm sitting here reading these books and watching it happen on television. That's how up to date it all is. The 2000 election, remember that election? Bush and Gore was in there in the minutest detail. Ever since the book came out, people kept calling me every time there was going to be an election. This is before the days of internet. And they would say, is this going to be the year of the hung jury election? I said, I don't know. All I know is what you got in the books. Because he saw an election that was what he called the hung jury election, as though it's so close you can't make a decision. And I probably should have brought it to read it, because there's such tricky symbolism. Nobody and all the scholars who have studied the prophecies have never come up with an answer like this. In the prophecy, it talks about the bones of the dead, and they come up with it, somebody, a ghost or something like that, and our haunted cemetery. And that's not anywhere near, it's his symbolism. So nobody has ever come up with the answers that we came up with. He said it would be an election, and it would be at a time when there would be a lot going on in the world, where it would be very important to be at a time of war. And this could be a very important election, but he said it would be so close that nobody could find the winner, and even the Congressional Congress would not be able to come up with a winner. And this is a whole page of this prediction. And some of you have read the book, so you know what I'm talking about, don't you? The ones who have read that prediction. And he said in there an interesting thing. He said it would come so close that it might even cause a civil war, because everybody would be rooting for their candidate and to be very angry about it. And he said the only way a decision would be made would be after another election had occurred. Well, I think he saw all this counting of the ballots over and over again, and that's what he meant. But anyway, that one prophecy is extreme detail. And also, Bush was not supposed to win. He was not supposed to win. Gore was supposed to win. Can you imagine the difference in the last 8 years if Gore had got in there with his focus on ecology and the environment? What a difference the world would have been. But it was not supposed to be that way. Bush is predicted many times in the prophecies. And who would have known there was going to be two? Because some of the prophecies apply to the first one, and some of them apply to the second one. He doesn't say the name, but it's definitely this time period. And he talks about the wars in Iraq. All of that is in there. He also talked about the Monica Lewinsky scandal, which is interesting. But so some of these, you never know what's going to be in there, and it's only when it's happening you say, oh, that's what he's talking about. But another one that did happen was the 9/11. And it's funny, I was lecturing the night before the 9/11 happened, was in North Carolina. I've been there for some conferences, and I had one last talk at this little center with a small group before I was going to leave the next morning. And we're staying at this person's house overnight. That night, during the lecture, I was talking about the prophecies that dealt with that. Because in one of the prophecies, he definitely mentions the bombing of the Pentagon, and he says Pentagon in the prophecy. We were talking about this during the lecture. And the next morning we get up and here's showing on TV, with the bombing of the World Trade Center and all of that. An interesting thing about the prophecy about the Pentagon, you've probably been hearing all this controversies, conspiracy stuff that's been on emails and TV, is because a bomb will fall on the Pentagon. He never called it a plane or anything. And there's a controversy about that. Was it even a plane? Because the videos don't show a plane. Who's to say? He said it was a bomb in the Pentagon. Well, there'll be a lot of this I don't know we're ever going to know the answers to. But he did mention 9/11. He didn't mention the date, but he talked about hitting New York. And he said it's hard to say what's going to happen because he said this is going to be the first of many. There will be many attacks on New York after that. So it was hard to separate them out. But all of these things were definitely in the prophecies that were happening. There's so many, but those are the main ones that I've had. We tried to keep up with it, didn't we? For a while, we had it on the website, the ones that were the updates. And every time I would reprint the books, I would add to the back of volume 1 some updates. But it just got to be impossible to keep up with all of it. Then it was hard to do it on the website. So anyway, it just kept going and going. So a lot of what he focused on was the third Antichrist. He said there were 3 Antichrists. And I'm going to play a video, and a lot of this information will be in there, because he said he didn't like the term Antichrist. He said it sounded religious. But he said if you refer to Christ as humanity, that an Antichrist was someone who did something against humanity, a person who had no morals, and like he said, Genghis Khan or Attila the Hun. He said, actually, if you want to consider that, you could say there were 5 Antichrists, because he considered Attila the Hun and Genghis Khan is also this kind of a personality. So he said, if somebody like that, so the 3 Antichrists that he saw was Napoleon for his time period in France, and he has lots and lots of quatrains dealing with Napoleon, and also Hitler. And we had many, many of those. And when I was on the History Channel, they wanted me to name off these. I don't know what they're going to put in this program. For a while during the 1990s, I was on every show dealing with Nostradamus, every network, every documentary. There's so many out there. And now they're not calling on me as much because it's kind of fading away. But over the years then, I began working on my other books and lecturing on that, and I kind of got away from the Nostradamus material. But one thing he did say, this evil man who was supposed to be the 3rd Antichrist, he's supposed to come from the Middle East. We have his birth date, we have a drawing of him, and you're going to see it on the video. He said, this man would be the worst of all of them because he would study from Hitler and he would learn from his mistakes. And this was where we were supposed to be by the beginning of the 2000s into this horrible war. And I like to think that maybe we took another turn and went into a lesser. We have the wars, but not the wars he saw. He saw horrible things. He also saw a lot of experiments that were being done with weaponry, and some of those are being developed by our own government. He had many quatrains dealing with AIDS, and he told us how that developed, and it was a government weapon. And I told him, when this was going on, I said, I can't write this stuff. They're going to hang me from the highest tree. But that was what I had to put together. But anyway, as he's going through all of this, he says the Antichrist will eventually be defeated by the common, ordinary people. He called it the lice at his feet, what he thought was insignificant. He mentions Agmios, who was a ancient Celtic Hercules, who is the leader of the underground, who is supposed to come against the Antichrist. And I kept thinking, wondering if this was going to happen or not, but Nostradamus said the Antichrist has been predicted as far back as the Bible. He's the beast in a Revelation, the beast with the number 666. And that deals with computers, and I'm also going to be going into that too. But those are the, does she? Okay. He said this is why this was a man, if this was so horrible, we had to know about him so we could stop it from happening. But he said, the way that the history is going to go, the pendulum cannot swing all the way to the very evil man and stay there. It must swing back. And when it swings back, it's going to swing back to the time of the great genius, the wonderful man. He said, at that time, you will be living in the 1,000 years of peace that's mentioned in the Bible. It'll be the wonderful time of, well, he said, the human body will be perfected to the point that it will never die. And we will have wonderful computer advances, and he didn't like computers. He was talking a lot about that. We'll be traveling in space, living in space. And he mentioned, in the last half of Volume 1, he mentions all of the wonderful inventions and things that are going to be coming during the time of the great genius. So I like to kind of think that maybe we are skipping over the real bad times and going into the time of the great genius. Who's to say? But I want to bring you up to that part. Okay, Greg, I think we can play the video now. This was a show that was on Sci-Fi Channel. And I really liked the way they put it together, so I kept it and I've used it.
World wars, man's landing on the moon, and the coming of a new Antichrist. Was Nostradamus warning people of the inevitable, or was he giving us the power to change our fate? Nostradamus lived in the 1500s, a time of fear and superstition, when plagues ravished the earth and the church ruled the fate of people. He had visions of mankind's terrible future and its own destruction. Not unlike our time, many people then believed that his predictions were satanic. The church would put him to trial.
That's him! That's Nostradamus!
You were accused of the worst of all crimes: black magic, alchemy, worship of the devil.
He would continue his work, however, feeling that it was his duty to inform us of our fate so we could change it and create a better future for ourselves. His predictions that have come true. World War I and the beginning of communism. World War II, the rise of the Third Reich. Jewish massacres. The atom bomb attacks on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And natural disasters. He also predicted the advancement mankind would make. The invention of aircraft, the first landing on the moon, and man's constant search for answers in space. These advancements will not go without mistakes, disastrous mistakes. The Vietnam War, a war out of control, and the Challenger, a dream shattered. Dolores Cannon is the leading expert on the Nostradamus predictions today. In 1986, something unexpectedly happened to her. As a past life hypnotherapist, she conducted what she thought would be a normal past life regression. A patient went back to a past life when she was a male student of Nostradamus. Nostradamus spoke through this patient.
I still have a hard time explaining what happened. He came through her and he said, I have an assignment for you. He could see that his prophecies were not being correctly interpreted. He said, the time is coming when they're going to come true.
I have to warn people. If they keep on like this, they will destroy everything. Nature, themselves.
Nostradamus gave Dolores the correct meanings of his predictions one by one. It took 3 years and 12 hypnotic subjects to complete the work. This was the first time that all Nostradamus' predictions have been translated. Almost 1,000. Nostradamus told Dolores Cannon to concentrate on the next 20 years.
20th century would be especially terrible. 3 wars will spread over the entire earth.
And we have shown now that some of the prophecies have already begun to come true.
In the world's history, thousands of people were killed by plagues, epidemics, illnesses with no cures. Not unlike our own time that has been struck with its own plague, AIDS. Nostradamus said that AIDS was a mutated disease, a form of rabies that originated from a monkey biting a woman who lived in Africa. The disease got into the blood mobiles and laboratories, contaminating biological products being made. AIDS will continue to spread worldwide. A cure is predicted about 15 years after the spread of this disease. The date of the Gulf War was given to Cannon long before it occurred.
He said, you don't know how important this is. This is the beginning of everything. This is actually the beginning of the Third World War.
This would instigate a few wars in the Middle East. The worst, however, is still to come.
There would be one man behind the scene during all of this time. This is the third Antichrist.
Nostradamus saw 3 antichrists in the course of Earth's existence. 2 were already predicted correctly, and we know them. Napoleon, Hitler. The third has already been born, and said to be the worst of them all. Nostradamus wanted our time period to know about the third Antichrist, so something could be done to stop him. This last Antichrist is the same entity referred to in the book of Revelation as the beast with the number 666. Nostradamus gave Dolores Cannon a detailed description of the third Antichrist and even a sketch drawing of him through the help of an artist. He was born on February the 4th, 1962, in Jerusalem. In 1987, he was a student at an Egyptian college specializing in computers, business, and philosophy. Presently, he is in the background of everything that is happening in the Middle East. He is described by Nostradamus as an extremely handsome man with tremendous charisma. At first, he will appear as a savior and the man with all the answers. But he will be the opposite of what he appears to be. He will be the sheep in wolf's clothing. His work is secretly done now. How many of us know him already? There were more events predicted for our future that Nostradamus wanted us to be aware of. The Nazi Party will slowly but surely return to power during the 90s. It will come to light that hurricanes are a man-made event brought about by scientists attempting to control the weather. The next 2 decades will mark the downfall of the Catholic Church. The Earth's continents will shift with the rising of the ocean's water levels. This could occur during the next 4 decades. These are just to mention a few. This all sounds like gloom and doom, but Nostradamus saw the amazing ability for the human being to adapt. We could handle the changes as long as they are occurring gradually, as they are now. Nostradamus also gave us a glimpse of a wonderful time to come. He saw a man whom he called the Great Genius, an important figure whose coming would balance out all the evil in the world. The Great Genius would invent great wonders, and he would reign in the 1,000 years of peace when we would be traveling through the cosmos and living in space colonies. One question remains to be answered, though. How could we explain all of this?
I want to bring out a very important point that really shakes people up. In my work with him, he was most emphatic by saying, you are not speaking to the dead when we are communicating. It's the concept of simultaneous time, that there is no time.
We look upon Nostradamus as a mystery, but as facts prove, he was an extraordinary human being with an extraordinary talent. Could we prepare ourselves for Armageddon?
Nostradamus saw the end of the world, but he said it's so far in the future you don't need to worry about it.
Cannon merely sees herself as a reporter with only the well-being of mankind at heart. Nostradamus said that people underestimate the power of their own minds. He said that it is up to us to change the world's fate and create a better